It's a scene, most of us really try to avoid thinking about.
Mm-hmm.
The room is quiet. The service is over. The guests have all gone home. And you're just left there, staring at a photo and a small wooden block. A nameplate.
It's a haunting place to start. Most people want to start a story with a birth, with all that potential.
Right, the beginning.
But the text we are diving into today insists we have to start at the end, because at that moment, the nameplate isn't just a label anymore. It's the only thing left.
And the source material specifically describes a funeral setting. It mentions the spirit tablet you see in traditional Korean rites. But the feeling is so universal.
Oh, absolutely.
You have this object, sometimes it's just a slip of paper, sometimes it's this beautifully carved wood placed right next to the portrait of the deceased.
Right. And for those who haven't seen one, a spirit tablet is treated with, immense reverence. In Confucian tradition, it's not just a marker.
It's more than that.
It effectively becomes the vessel for the spirit during the rites. It lists the person's social status, their lineage, their rank in the family, everything.
And if it's a Christian funeral, you might see titles like deacon or elder. But the author's point, really, it hit me pretty hard.
Yeah.
Regardless of the religion, regardless of the ritual, that string of characters on the wood represents the sum total of a life.
Everything you ever did, every relationship you had, every dollar you earned, it's all just compressed into that name.
We leave behind a smiling face in a photo and a name. That's the quote from the text.
That's it. You don't leave your credit score. You don't leave your job title. You leave your name. And that just raises the stakes for this whole conversation.
So if a name is the final summary of your existence, then the act of naming something isn't just administrative.
No, it's existential.
So if names are the sum of a life at the end, we have to look at how they started. And the source argues that to really get this, we have to go all the way back.
To the beginning.
To Genesis. But this is where I got a little confused. The text claims the first human didn't. He didn't actually have a name at first.
It's a detail a lot of people miss. We just assume he popped out of the dust with a "Hello, my name is Adam" sticker on his chest.
Right, yeah.
But the source points out that in the original Hebrew narrative, in Genesis 2, he's referred to simply as the man-Adam. It's a description of what he is.
An earthling.
An earthling, a creature of the ground. It's not a proper personal noun yet.
So God creates him, but doesn't immediately give him a personal handle. Why? That just seems inefficient.
Well, if you look at the sequence of events, God seems to pause the process. Instead of naming the man immediately, he gives the man a job.
Okay.
Genesis 2.19, God forms all the beasts of the field and the birds of the air, and he brings them to the man.
To name them.
To see what he would call them.
Okay, but honestly.
Yeah.
That sounds like data entry.
Yeah.
God makes a cow, Adam says cow. God makes the sheep, Adam says sheep.
It feels like that, doesn't it?
It feels like he's just filling out a spreadsheet so they can get on with the real work.
And that's how we see it, because we live in a world of just, infinite data. We slap tags on things to organize them. But the source argues that for Adam, this wasn't categorization.
It was an introduction.
It was an introduction. Think about the cognitive load required here to name something accurately. To distinguish a lion from a tiger or an eagle from a hawk. You have to actually look at it.
You can't just glance. You have to observe.
You have to know its nature. You have to establish a relationship with it. The source argues that God was inviting Adam to fall in love with creation. It's an act of intense observation.
The text actually used a really moving story to illustrate this, about a grandfather. And I think this is where that whole administrative argument just falls apart.
The Met jury story, yes.
So the author tells this story about a Korean grandfather. And in this culture, names are often, formulaic. You've got the surname, that's set. You have a generation name, which is predetermined by the clan registry. So really, you just have to come up with one unique syllable.
Sounds like the easiest job in the world. Just pick a character that sounds good.
Exactly. But the son calls the grandfather, who's living 4 hours away in Incheon, and says, "The baby is born. Give us the name."
And this is where the data entry mindset just fails completely. If it was just a label, the grandfather could have just given the name over the phone.
He could have texted it. Call him June. Done.
But he doesn't.
No. He gets in his car. He drives 4 hours all the way to the foot of Mount Jiri just to walk into the room and look at the baby.
I thought that was obsessive at first. Like, just send a photo.
Me too. But the text explains he refused to name the child until he had looked into the boy's eyes.
Because you cannot name what you do not know. He needed to see the face, to feel the reality of this new life. before he could assign it an identity.
So that 4-hour journey, that's
Yeah.
the difference between labeling and naming.
And the source suggests this is exactly what God was doing with Adam. God was letting Adam have his 4-hour drive moment with the animals.
He was letting him learn the process.
Precisely. By withholding Adam's name and letting him name the animals first, God was teaching him. It was like God was saying, do you see how much attention you're paying to these birds? Do you see how you are studying them? That is how I am looking at you.
That paints such a beautiful picture of naming as an act of intimacy. But, well, we all know the story. It doesn't stay that way. The world breaks.
Shift. This is the pivot point of the entire text. We move from naming as connection to naming as power.
And to explain this, the source brings up something we all dealt with in middle school.
Oh, yeah.
Nicknames.
It's a universal experience, isn't it?
Totally. But usually we just think of it as kids being mean, shorty, four eyes, tubby.
We just dismiss it as immaturity.
Yeah.
But the source argues that psychologically, this is actually a very sophisticated power play.
A power play.
When you give someone a mocking nickname, what are you actually doing? You're highlighting something they're insecure about.
You are reducing a complex human being with dreams and fears and a soul down to a single characteristic that you have observed and judged.
You're saying, I am above you. You are defined by this flaw, and I'm the one holding the label gun.
I define you. That's the power dynamic. It's not just bullying.
It's owning. Exactly. And adults do this too. We label people politically, or in the office, the intern, the boomer, the liberal. It's a way of dismissing their humanity so we don't have to engage with them.
And the source traces this instinct directly back to the moment sin enters the world in Genesis 3, which is where the text completely flipped a story I thought I knew. We have to talk about Adam naming Eve.
This is one of the most provocative insights in the source material, I think.
Because I've always heard sermons saying Adam naming Eve was this, romantic gesture, like, oh, finally, someone like me.
That happens before the name. When they first meet, before the fall, he doesn't call her Eve. He calls her woman, saying, this is bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh.
That's a declaration of sameness.
Of unity. You are me.
Okay, so when does Eve show up?
Look at the timeline. It's in Genesis 3:20. This is after they eat the fruit, after they hide in the bushes, after God confronts them and pronounces the curses.
And crucially, after Adam throws her under the bus.
Exactly. After he says, the woman you gave me, she gave me the fruit.
Wait, hold on. I always thought Eve was a beautiful name. It means mother of living, right? You're saying him naming her was actually an insult, or at least a power grab.
Think about the emotional state of that moment. Their world is collapsing. They're terrified of death. Adam has just tried to blame her to save his own skin. The relationship is fractured.
Right.
And in that moment of fear, he turns to her and gives her a proper name. Eve. He's asserting authority.
It's a defensive move.
It is. The source interprets this as the birth of hierarchy. I need to know where I stand, so I'm putting you in your place. He names her to rule over her.
So naming went from, I see you and I love you, to
I own you and I rank you.
that is tragic. It takes all the romance right out of it. It becomes a symptom of the brokenness.
And it culminates in the Tower of Babel. The source briefly touches on this humanity gathering together not to connect with God, but to make a name for ourselves.
So we started with God wanting to name us in love. We ruined it by using names for dominance and for branding, and now we're stuck. We have this system where names are just tools for ego. How does the story fix that?
Well, this is the deep dive part. The source argues that God performs a system override.
He starts renaming people.
He starts renaming people, but he doesn't do it the way humans do.
The divine renaming. I know we have Abraham changing from Abram to Abraham.
Right. Abram means exalted father, which was frankly embarrassing because he was old and childless. Abraham means father of multitudes. But the source emphasizes that God didn't change the name because Abraham earned it. He changed it to show that Abraham's identity was now anchored in God's promise, not his own biology.
But the real drama, the one that really reads like a movie script, is his grandson, Jacob.
Oh, Jacob is the ultimate case study. I mean, if Abraham is the model citizen, Jacob is the guy running the Ponzi scheme.
A total grifter.
His name literally marks him as a hustler. Jacob sounds like the Hebrew word for heel, implying he's a heel grabber or a deceiver. And his life matched the label perfectly.
He cheats his brother out of his inheritance, tricks his blind father with a goatskin disguise.
He runs away to his uncle and gets involved in these complex breeding schemes to steal livestock. The man cannot stop hustling.
Until he runs out of road.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The source zooms in on that night at the Jabbok River. Jacob is about to face the brother he cheated. He is terrified he's going to be killed. He sends his family away. He's completely alone in the dark.
And he gets jumped.
He gets into a brawl, but not with a bandit, with a divine figure. And they wrestle all night. This isn't a sport. This is a desperate man fighting for his life and his soul.
And as the sun comes up, the divine figure cripples him and asks.
What is your name?
That is such a loaded question. He's asking him to admit who he is.
Yes, he has to say it. I am Jacob. I am the deceiver. I am the fraud. He has to own his nameplate.
And then the override happens.
Your name will no longer be Jacob, but Israel.
He who struggles with God.
It's a profound shift. He goes from being the guy who tricks people to get ahead to the man who holds on to God and won't let go. God didn't make him King Jacob or Rich Jacob. He gave him a relational name.
The hustle is over.
The relationship is restored.
It really reinforces that idea that a God-given name is about restoring a connection, not just giving a fancy title.
And that leads us to the ultimate restoration. The source jumps from the Old Testament narratives straight to the New Testament, specifically to the concept of baptism and the name Christian.
Now, this is where we have to be careful, because Christian is a word we hear 1,000 times a day. It's on political ads, it's on dating profiles, it's a category on a census form. It feels, well, generic.
It feels like a demographic checkbox. Name, age, religion, Christian. We've completely desensitized the word. But the source unpacks the history here, and it's fascinating.
It starts with the symbolism of baptism.
Right. The water, the source explains it simply. Going under the water is a death. It's the death of the Jacob. It's the death of the reputation you tried to build, the brand you curated, the nickname you were stuck with. It all drowns.
And coming up is the new life. Now, the source mentioned a distinction between Catholic and Protestant traditions here regarding names.
Yes, and it's a helpful nuance. In the Catholic tradition, there's a strong emphasis on the baptismal name. You might be named Peter or Francis or Teresa. The idea is that you have a saint as a model.
You look at their life and say, I want to be like that.
It's aspirational. It is. But the source notes that the Protestant reformers, the people who split from the Catholic Church, actually pushed back on this. They removed the focus on saint names.
Why? Were they just being contrarian?
Well, their argument was that people were focusing too much on the human model. If you're named Peter, you try to act like Peter. The reformers said, no, the point isn't to look like Peter, it's to look like Jesus. They wanted to clear the deck.
So if you strip away the saint names, what are you left with?
You are left with the one true name given to all believers. It appears for the first time in Acts 11.26 in the city of Antioch. The disciples were called Christians first at Antioch.
It's a bit anticlimactic, isn't it? I mean, we see that word on everything. It just feels like a marketing category.
That's the modern baggage talking. But go back to Antioch. This was the Roman Empire. Allegiance was everything. To be named Christian, literally a little Christ, or one belonging to Christ, wasn't a safe category.
It was a target.
It was a target. It meant you didn't belong to Caesar anymore. You belonged to a different master.
And that belonging brings us back to the core theme. Relationship.
Exactly. The source argues that the name Christian signifies a return to the Garden of Eden. It means you are someone who has the right to talk to God face to face.
That brings us to the cost, because the source makes a really specific point about conversation that I hadn't considered.
Yes, we take prayer for granted, but in the ancient world, and frankly, in any power structure conversation, requires equality. You don't converse with your pet, you give commands. A master didn't converse with a slave, he gave orders.
So for a human to converse with the creator of the universe, that's a category error. It shouldn't be possible.
It's the ultimate privilege. And the source says this right. The right to wear the name Christian and speak to God was purchased. It wasn't free. It was bought by the blood of Jesus on the cross. That is the price of admission for this conversation.
And to illustrate what this conversation looks like and why it's so heartbreaking that we often ignore it, the author uses an analogy that I think anyone with a teenager or anyone who has been a teenager will feel in their gut.
The teenage room analogy.
Yeah. So the son puts a sign on his door.
Keep out. No nagging. Do not disturb.
The universal signal for, I don't want to be known.
Exactly. The door is closed. The son is inside, probably scrolling on his phone, wanting zero contact. He wants to be left alone in his own little world.
But the father, the speaker in the text, what does he do?
He knocks.
every day.
Every day, he knocks. He's not knocking to yell. He's not knocking to inspect the room. He wants to see his son's face. He wants to talk.
And that's the flip. We usually think of God as the one behind the door, and we're the ones knocking, hoping he answers.
But the source says, no, you are the teenager. You have put up the sign that says, my life. Keep out. You are the one hiding in the room. God is the father who keeps knocking, desiring the conversation that Christian implies.
That hits hard.
Yeah.
It reframes the whole concept of the name.
Mm-hmm.
Being a Christian isn't about claiming a status. It's about answering the door.
It's answering the knock of someone who drove, metaphorically speaking, way more than 4 hours to see your face.
So we've gone from the nameplate at the funeral to Adam naming animals in love, to naming as a weapon of power, and finally to this name Christian, which restores our ability to just chat with the divine.
It's a huge arc. But the source doesn't end on just a warm, fuzzy feeling. There is a challenge. A so what?
The story about the Men's Mission Society.
Right. This really drives the point home. So there was this group at a church called the Men's Mission Society. Great name. Sounds heroic.
Sounds like they're getting things done.
But they weren't. They were just a social club. They met up, drank coffee, chatted about sports. The name on the door said mission, but the activity in the room was loafing.
They were false advertising.
And at some point, the contradiction just became too much. They realized they were frauds. Their nameplate didn't match their life.
So what did they do? Did they just change the name to the coffee club?
No. They decided to live up to the name. They said, even if we go broke, even if it costs us our free time, even if it's uncomfortable, we have to actually go do mission work.
They felt the burden of the label.
They let the name dictate their actions.
That brings us full circle back to the funeral, back to that wooden tablet.
It does. And that's the question the author leaves us with. It's terrifying, actually. It asks if our identity is just a sticker we applied, or if it's the truth of who we are.
If the label fell off.
Exactly. If the name Christian means one who belongs to Christ and one who converses with God, if someone looked at your life, at your nameplate, without seeing the title, would they come up with that name on their own?
That is.
Yeah.
That's the question. It's not about what you call yourself. It's about whether you're answering the knock at the door.
And whether the content of your life matches the title on the wood.
Well, on that heavy but necessary note, we're going to leave you to think about what's written on your nameplate. Thanks for diving in with us today.
See you next time.